And good morning to you. Welcome into WBCU, a special news presentation of this radio station, which we do from time to time in order to try to keep you, help you to be a better informed citizen about what's going on. We are in the political season, as it is called. If you don't know that, you've had your head under a rock somewhere, and with all the national politics going on, and unfortunately sometimes that overshadows our local politics, but I don't think we're going to ask any national questions this morning. We have as our guest, and I'm going from my left to right, and I guess it is in alphabetical order, Mark Cathcart. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Mark ran for this particular office that we're talking about this morning, House District 42. He ran 2 years ago for that. Won very nicely in Union County, but was edged out by his opponent over in Lawrence County. And I know that had to be disappointing, but nonetheless, that's the way politics goes sometimes. And then Tommy Mann, who is, as far as I know, a newcomer to politics.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, you want to go by Tommy, you want to go by Reverend, you want to go
Tommy
by Doctor, or
Tommy's good.
Your royal high grooviness.
Well, that's good, if you want to go with that. Yeah.
I'm going back to an old laugh-in show with that that particular phrase. Tommy, I hope you're doing well this morning.
I am. Thank you for having us.
The two are running as Republicans for the Republican nomination to face Mike Anthony, the incumbent in November. So we still will be doing this same show again, but one of you will not be here. Because the primary is just a week away.
A week from tomorrow.
A week from tomorrow. And you'll be going to the polls. Now let's go over there just for a little bit. As is often the case in Union County, there are people on both tickets you want to vote for. Somebody in the Democrat race, somebody in the Republican. You can't do it.
Right.
You have to make a choice of which primary you're going to be voting in. And there's some county council races. As a matter of fact, all of the county council races are on the Democratic side, and we're going to have them on all this week, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, as we'll look at the various districts there. But just to let you know, right now, there's always confusion at the polls about this. So I want to vote for somebody here, and I want to vote for somebody there. And sometimes it's a little difficult for people to understand that you can't do both. Mm-hmm. You have to make a choice on which primary you want. Now, general election, when it rolls around in November, you can vote for whoever's listed, whoever you want to vote for. No political party designation required for that whatsoever. I got to have another swallow of coffee. I told these fellas I'll bring my coffee from home, and therefore I don't have any. We got a coffee pot back there. I don't know why we don't use it.
Let's plug it in.
That'd be a good idea. We don't have any coffee, but we can give you some hot water. Well, let's start this morning with our questions and receive comments from Mark and Tommy. Well, I tell you what, let's just open with a statement. And here again, alphabetical order, I'll start with Mark. Give us a little bit about where you're coming from, what you're doing, and why you want to run.
Okay. Well, I'm Mark Cathcart, and of course running for the House seat, District 42. And I'd like to point out, too, that if you live in Union County, then you can vote in this race, because I've come across a lot of people that say, you know, I can't vote for you because I don't live in your district. And so I tell them, if you live in Union County, you can vote. So it's a whole county and part of Lawrence County. But I'm a pro-life Christian conservative. I was born and raised here in Union. And, you know, I believe in the Bible, and I believe in our Constitution. And I feel like that we're in a state here in this country where Christianity is under attack. It's time for good men and women to stand up and seek positions of leadership to represent those that still believe in those things. I am running for this office for that reason. I just feel like we need some more representation in that area. So that's where I get my direction from. and that's why I'm running for this seat.
Tommy Mann.
Yes, sir. Yes. I know many people know that I'm not from South Carolina. I always feel like I owe it to the voters to begin by saying that, to let them know that I'm not from here. But I always say I didn't get to choose where I was born, but I do get to choose where I live. And I'm from Orlando, Florida. Loved it there, but I choose to live and raise my family here in Union, South Carolina. We've been here since January of 2008. I moved here, as you know, to become the pastor of students at Philippi Baptist Church. And I've been in the ministry now for close to 13 years. So like Mark, I'm also a Bible-believing Christian. My faith is not something that I started talking about in order to try to win a race here in the Bible Belt, but my faith is what motivates me. It's what guides me in my daily decision-making, and it's actually what got me here to South Carolina, was searching for a job and finding a great church. And for the last about 2.5 months now, I've been at Putman Baptist Church and have really enjoyed being out there. So with me, as you mentioned a minute ago, being a newcomer to politics, I'm not a politician. I don't plan on becoming a politician. But what people can expect from me is a person that stands up for what I believe in, a person that runs on conviction. I would rather lose a race, lose an election, and keep my convictions intact than compromise in any way in order to gain a few votes. So people can expect consistency from me, a person that stands up for what I believe in and sticks to those decisions.
Very good. Thank you. Now, I told you out in the hallway there, I think I only had one maybe tough question for you. I would consider this to be a tough question, but it comes about as a result of a brief conversation I had with Mark. The only social life I have is in the grocery store, so I ran into Mark there, and we chatted just for a few moments, and he commented that, he says, Tommy and I are pretty much on the same page.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my question is, I'm going to start with Tommy. If that is the case, how does one decide about for whom they're going to vote?
Well, the easiest solution would be for Mark to just drop out of the race, and then we wouldn't have that decision. But no, that's one of the problems with any kind of party primary, especially in the Republican primary, because we are going to be very similar. We're going to agree on many of the same issues. We're both pro-life. We're both Bible believers. We both, like he said, are running because we see our Christian values and things that we once took for granted, I think, in this country. We see them come under attack, and so those are things that motivated us both, not just to live our lives, but to run for this race, to get involved, to not sit back and hope somebody else does it, but to try to say, well, hey, if no one else is going to do it, let me try to get in there and do it myself. So we're going to be similar on a lot of things. But listen, I'm not going to tell you why you should not vote for Mark. All I want to do is tell people why I think they should vote for me. And as I said just a minute ago, it's because of what motivates me and how I live my life. And I try to make every decision one that at the end of the day, I hope that please my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And I hope that when my life is said and done, that he'd be proud of the race and the way that I run the race, and if elected, the way that I conduct myself in Columbia. So I don't want this race, and I've said everywhere I've gone, it's not about who I'm running against. People mention Mike Anthony. It's not about running against Mike. I like Mike. It's not about Mark. I like Mark. I just want to tell people why they should vote for me. So it's not about who I'm running against, but who I'm running for. And I have a burden for the people here in Union County, as well as all of District 42 and Joanna and Clinton as well in Lawrence County. So I just want to do everything I can to help out these people that have become my family over the last 8.5 years of living here.
Mark.
Well, I agree with Tommy there that it's really not about us trying to outdo each other. It's about Union County and Lawrence County having a choice. And there's been many elections in the past that there was no choice. And so just like you hear in every election, people say, well, I'm going to hold my nose and vote. Well, there's not really a good choice. And I think with Tommy and I that Union and the whole district has a very good choice this time. They have the opportunity to make some changes if they would like. It's all left up to the voters. Like I said, I've been here my whole life. I moved away for a period of time working and decided to come back. And this is where I'm raising my family. I have a love for this county. I have a love for this area of the state. And I just am really fed up with being bullied around by certain agendas and being under attack constantly. I'm not one that necessarily backs down from confrontation or a fight, when you're standing up and fighting for what you believe in, it's a lot easier. And when you're backed up by the Word of God, it makes it even more easier then. The ridicule is greater. The punishment sometimes seems to be greater, but there again, it's much easier to stand up. And I ask people from time to time, what would you trade your salvation for? And that's a tough question for people. And there's nothing on this earth that I would trade my salvation for. I know everybody gives the example of, when you get in office, you become corrupt. That seems to be the case. That seems to be the overbearing case. But when you are convicted, truly convicted, you're going to stick to your principles, and you're going to stick to what you believe in the face of adversity. And there again, Columbia is a mess. Columbia's a mess. This seat is we need to talk about things that are statewide, along with district-wide, but statewide, because it's a statewide seat, and the things that happen on the state level have trickled down from the national level. So it's really kind of hard to separate and not talk about all of them.
That's right.
At the same time.
Is there, and you both have expressed your faith here this morning, and that is good. Really, regardless of what it is, we like to see people that are going to stand up for what they believe. If it was some other things, I may not agree with you, but we are right now. And as a journalist, I shouldn't say I agree with either one of you, but just put the facts out there. But sometimes I have to stand up, too. Mark, is there a place, both of you have mentioned, is there a place for the Bible in government these days?
Yes. I mean, we live in a nation that was founded upon biblical principles. That's our Constitution. The forefathers, they were amazingly smart, and they used the Bible as their foundation of their intelligence. And that's why we have the longest standing Constitution in the world. I mean, there's societies that are much older than we are, but our Constitution has stood for well over 200 years. And it's because of those biblical principles. But whenever you get to a point to where the people don't believe, then the Constitution just becomes words on a paper. You must believe in it. You must believe in where it came from. And yes, there is a place for it. And there is no establishment of religion in this country. But I'm so tired of hearing about the separation of church and state. The separation of church and state was merely a mention that Thomas Jefferson had in a letter to the Dansbury Baptist Association. And what we must remember, at that time, we had just split off from a nation that had a established state religion. And that is not what our forefathers wanted for us. That's why the original people that came here, that's why they came here, for religious persecution. And so without that biblical foundation for our nation, we're on a downhill slide. We're on a downhill slide. Whether you believe the Bible or not, it's irrelevant. The foundation of our Constitution on that biblical principle is why people can live the way they want and the way they choose in this nation. So there again, just like, it doesn't matter what you believe, it's what's true. And our forefathers knew that. That's why they based our Constitution on biblical principles.
Tommy, you have a thought on that?
Yeah, Mark's exactly right. In the history of the separation of church and state, there isn't one. That was just a mention that Thomas Jefferson had. And people act like introducing the Bible into government now was some kind of new drastic measure. The reality is the removal of the Bible from government is what's led to the drastic mess that we're in. And I think the only way to get us back as a nation and as a state is to bring the Bible back. Someone asked me the other day, mockingly said, "So are you going to take your faith to Columbia if you're elected?" And I said, "You're darn right I will, because I can't separate myself from my faith, and the voters know what they're getting with me. They know what my faith is and what my faith leads me to do. So I can't separate myself from it, but I believe that my faith is good for the people of South Carolina. It tells me to love my neighbor as myself. It tells me to treat others the way I want to be treated. It tells me to be honest and true and stand up for what I believe in. And so my faith is important to me. Not only do I believe it has a place in government, I think that it deserves to be in government. Our own Congress once had a printing press with the expressed purpose of printing Bibles just to teach children to read in school. I mean, they were stamped on the front page. This Bible was printed by the United States Congress, and it was given to schools, and our kids once learned how to read in school using nothing but the Bible. So now to think that kids can't have their Bibles out at lunchtime or take it out of their locker is absurd to me. But you mentioned separation of church and state, but think about our First Amendment too. The First Amendment doesn't just mean that we have the freedom to choose what church we go to on Sunday. Our First Amendment says that our free exercise of religion cannot be infringed upon, and so that means that we can live it out, our faith, whether you own a bakery and you don't want to make a cake for a certain type of wedding, or you're a photographer, the same thing. And that should also apply to those who are running for public office. You shouldn't be told that you can't be a Christian, an open Christian, when you go to Congress. And nobody ever tells the atheist that you have to leave your atheism at home when you go to Congress. Nobody ever tells people of any other faith that they can't take their worldview in with them. So I think it's absurd that people try to say that if you're a Bible believer, then you have to somehow subtract that when you get to Congress.
I've been in this business for a few years, which y'all both know. And I have dealt with politics and politicians during those years, and it's been interesting to hear what they have had to say. The one constant element that I have heard people in politics mention, and especially on this level, the state level as far as the House is concerned, and even the Senate, that the key to success there is compromise. My observation, and I'm going to Tommy this, I'm trying to switch back and forth here to make it fair. It doesn't sound like you're going to be a very compromising person.
Well, that's not true. And I'll compromise when I need to compromise. And every person has to have a set of core beliefs in which you will never compromise. And then you have to have other places in which you're willing to compromise. And I think that's true of everybody. If you have a person that has nothing in which that they won't compromise, then that person is not really a person of principle. They're a person that just says, well, all I'm going to do is compromise on this or that. They're just trying to get everybody to like them, to try to win re-election, to be all things to all people. But if a person has something that they would rather lose an election than compromise on, I'm pro-life. And I will never cast a vote to do anything that is anything less than pro-life. I believe life begins at conception. I won't compromise on that. I won't sign on to anything that says, okay, I'll let you abort a baby at this point in time, or I'll let you fund Planned Parenthood to perform abortions. I would never sign off on anything like that because I won't compromise on it. But there's other places where I will. There's probably a million other things in which I'd be willing to meet a person halfway in order to get something done. So no, I'll compromise. I'll work with anybody. But I'd question anybody that says that they don't have anything they wouldn't budge on. We all should. And a person that says they don't, I don't think that person is running for other people's best interest but their own.
But Mark, compromise can be tough.
Yes, it can be. It can be tough. There's some hard issues. I mean, there's things. Tommy and I, we've never been there. Neither one of us are politicians. Neither one of us probably years ago thought we would be on this path. I know I certainly didn't. But just like Tommy said, there are things that you can compromise on. If we're going to lunch today, we can compromise on where we're going to eat lunch. If there's a bill there that says we're going to have to pull money away from this program, the road beautification program, to fix some potholes, then that's a compromise that you can do. But there's certain things that you cannot compromise on. Just like Tommy said, the abortion issue, there's no compromise there. No compromise. We should outlaw abortion in these cases and defund Planned Parenthood. Life begins at conception. That is it. Life the Bible tells us that the Lord knew us even before we were conceived. Okay, that's all I need to know right there. Those issues cannot be compromised. If that means there's one vote against it on the State House floor and it's mine, so be it. So be it. Just like I said a while ago, what would you be willing to sacrifice your salvation for? And there's nothing on this earth, fame, success, fortune, it's not worth it. This is just a fleeting time that we're here. And so there's certain things that need to be stood up for. There's certain things that cannot be compromised. But, yes, compromise is difficult, and the people that you have to compromise with can even be more difficult than that. And so those are things that we'll have to just figure out. But, like was mentioned before, you have to have a core belief. You have to have a part of you inside that is unmovable. And that is where you step off to make your decisions on other things.
See if my memory's serving me right. It's not very long anymore, but didn't the legislature just this year, before they adjourned last week, didn't they come up with a new ruling on abortion?
Yes, it was the 19 weeks is what it was, and which is a step in the right direction. It is a step in the right direction. But life begins at conception. I mean, I've got a animal science degree from Clemson, and that is pretty heavy biology. So besides the spiritual aspect of life and reproduction, I understand the biological aspect. Right. And have seen it firsthand. Life begins at conception, period.
No if, and, buts.
No if, and, buts about it.
Tommy?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Pain-capable, Unborn Child Protection Act, restricted in this state abortion. It's 20 weeks and out, which basically means up to 19 weeks they can still abort. It is a step in the right direction. It's a foot in the door is how I've described it. I'm glad it passed. It took 3 years, and that's a shame, but I'm glad it passed, and I lobbied for it for 3 years. The reality is, in this state, on average, that will save about 28 babies a year. Now, I'll do everything I can for those 28 babies, and that's why it's a huge success. But we can do so much better than that, and that's why from day one, when I first announced my intentions to run in October when I resigned from Philippi, I said that the number one thing that I will do, I plan to author and introduce the Life Begins at Conception Act. And if I get up there and that costs me a re-election bid, I don't care. I'm going to go for it because I'd rather try that and fail than never try at all. So I look at this as a foot in the door because what we've done now is for the first time we've given the unborn child due process in this country. What Pain Capable says is we now know that from 20 weeks, at least 20 weeks, an unborn child can feel pain. If the child is required to have some kind of surgery in utero, they're required now to give him anesthesia for the surgery. But yet there's no anesthesia for abortion. We see from ultrasound that the child is literally, I know it's graphic, but ripped limb from limb before his skull is crushed. We see the child writhing in pain, trying to dodge the forceps, doing everything he can to survive. And yet people want to abort at 19 weeks or 18 weeks, and I think the only way to solve it is to push it all the way back to conception, to say that this child is entitled to now full due process, not just the right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness, but the right to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. And I would do everything I can to defend those children. I, too, in my book, Asleep in Heaven's Nursery, which is available at voteforman.com. But in that book, I detail the biology of the whole process, and I believe that life begins at conception, and we should do everything we can to protect those babies.
Had a conversation fairly recently with a young lady, and this subject came up, and she informed me very quickly and rather dogmatically that she was in favor of abortion. Mm-hmm. Why? And this is the answer that we get so many times. She said, I believe a woman has a right to control her own body. Mm-hmm. Tommy, you want to take that?
Well, yeah, I'd ask her if her body has 2 heads, 4 hands, 4 feet, 2 beating hearts. No, her body has one of each of those things, and the smaller baby inside of her body has the others. That baby inside her, quite frankly, is just not hers. I've gone around the country speaking on this issue, and so, I mean, I could fill the whole hours speaking about the process of life inside the womb, and to handle each of those difficult cases of rape and incest and the health of the mother. Look, my wife was told to have an abortion for her own health and for the well-being of our daughter. We refused, and that's why I point to our beautiful 7-year-old daughter all the time when people ask me why I care so much about life inside the womb, because there's many people like my wife who were told you should have an abortion, and they get scared and they do. And I point to our healthy daughter and say, no, you shouldn't. And so I always say people should let God beg him for a miracle. You know, if they say, well, this child can't survive. I had a woman tell me that after reading my book. She said that she decided to keep her child. She said, the hour that I held my baby and let him die in my arms, she said, no one can ever take that from me. She said, I'm so glad I gave him a fighting chance. And he still didn't make it, unfortunately. That child's in heaven. But she said, now I know that I did everything I could for my child. And so now she doesn't have to live with the regret. Did I choose to terminate my child's life? And now she knows she didn't. And still, it didn't work out the way she wanted. But she has no regrets about that. And that's why I just want people to know 70% accuracy in the amniocentesis that diagnoses birth defects. That means 3 out of every 10 children that were aborted for birth defects were perfectly healthy. And so, you know, like I said, I can go on and on about it. But no, I don't support abortion at any time for any reason.
Yeah, I can't help but just drop in there the same thing. I have a granddaughter in heaven. And Susan and her husband Brent both knew before the child was born that there were going to be problems. They knew that there was going to be some developmental problems. They knew all these things were going to be facing them when that child was born, but yet they chose to go through the process of having the child. The unfortunate part about it is the child died in the womb of heart complications prior to the birth. Never met her, but I miss that little girl.
Yeah.
That's one that doesn't get to sit on my knee. Does a woman have a choice, Mark?
I've had this conversation several times, and I point out to them that that baby has a choice, has a right for its body. Then you can go on a little bit further with them a lot of times and ask them, now what if your mother felt that way? Makes it a little more personal, makes it a little more real, that when you point out to them that if your mother felt that way, then you and I would not be having this conversation, because you would not be here. You would not be here. And so the society that we live in, the education that's going on with reproduction, they're trying to teach our children at a young age that life begins at birth, that this is just a mass of tissue up to a point, and it's really nothing. Okay, so I don't know if we've got time today to get on the education in this country, but it is the right of that baby to have life. Our Constitution points out life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay? Now, choices should have been made before the conception of that child to prevent that. Abortion for the convenience of not having a baby is an absolute travesty. And I had a conversation with a lady when I ran last time, and we pretty much disagreed on about everything. Abortion was one of them. Abortion was one of them. And when we got through with our conversation, she told me, and it shocked me, she said, you know, she said, I can see that you stand up for what you believe in. She said, I just might vote for you. We're looking for people out in the public. They are looking for people that's going to stand up for what they believe in, whether they agree with them or not. Like Tommy mentioned earlier, if costing a seat in the House because of a vote is what it takes, and that's what it takes. We need people that are willing to go there and commit what I call political suicide to stand up for what's right. This is one of those things that's right. This is right. There's no compromise. It's what's right. How many human beings have been eliminated in this nation? How many will be eliminated today? The number is staggering. We will have trials, arrests, and Facebook posts and just public ridicule if somebody kills a puppy.
A gorilla.
Yeah, or a gorilla for something recent. But yet, we stand by and say nothing when thousands upon thousands of babies are eliminated daily.
4,300 daily, 55 million since Roe.
Yep.
That's
a lot.
A lot. An awful lot. We could probably spend the remainder of the hour and another hour on this subject. I can tell it's a passionate issue for both of you, and I would assume, if elected, it's going to be something you're going to be addressing in Columbia, although it needs to move on to the federal level, too. Let's move to another issue that's been in our state for right now, see where you're headed with it. And let's see, who am I? Okay, I'm with you this time.
Okay.
I need to get one of those little things that goes back and forth. Did the legislature do enough on roads this year?
They did more. You know, we've had some roads paved here in Union.
I got to point out, that's on the county level, though.
Right. But there again, most people don't know that. I mean, they just see it being done. I wish every year was an election year. Maybe we'd get more roads fixed. And no, there's not enough being done. That problem is not corrected. Just because there's been some roads fixed, some things improved, it's kind of a pacifier for the county.
Take it to a state level, though.
On the state level, well, there are strong members in the House and the Senate that pull money to their areas. And those areas, first and foremost, would be the Charleston area. They have great roads down there. You can argue it both ways of well, they put more in, but they get more out. Proportionally, they get more out than what they're putting in. And a lot of the other areas in the state get neglected. But there also needs to be some sort of an audit of the DOT. There's a lot of corruption there, as in everything else. There's a lot of wasted money. There's a lot of things that go on that should not go on. Mike, I was raised on a farm, and I think we should apply a lot of farm principles to government, and roads would be one of those good examples. When you've got the money, you can spend it. When you don't have the money, you can't spend it. And we can borrow ourselves completely into oblivion and fix every road. But we can fix more roads than what we're doing. There's waste on every level, and those things are just difficult. We may not live long enough to get that waste cut out, but we got to start somewhere. And there's people that are in the House and in the Senate that are trying to move that way. Those people need help. They need more help from more representatives and more state senators to move that agenda to correct those wastes. But no, there's not been enough done.
I believe, here again, as memory serves me, that the legislature appropriated around $2 billion for this coming year for road repair, when the actual need is something like, $24 billion that would be necessary to bring all the roads in South Carolina up to date. Tommy, I threw the same question to you that I threw to Mark. Did they do enough?
Well, that figure you gave is high, but in South Carolina we have more roads per capita than they do in the state of California. So we have so many roads because people that live up, off the beaten path a mile down the road, and they have a paved strip of road and they name it. And so we have so many roads in this county. Not all of them need to be repaired, and I think some of those need to be prioritized, kind of like what Mark was just saying. Did they do enough? The legislative process is slow by design. Our founders designed it that way because we don't need a legislature, federal or state level, that just passes so many things. And so it's slow by design, and so it's a slow process, and I'm glad they are taking steps in the right direction. And I do want to applaud Frank Hart and our council for the 25 roads that were repaired this past year, and I know that they're going to be doing more in the coming year, so they should be commended for that right here in the county, and I'm glad we have a council being proactive on that and a supervisor. But at the state level, it took a while because you had one group wanting to attach, instead of just purely fixing roads, they're trying to attach it to a transportation bill, another trying to add that gas tax hike with it, and it had to sift through both houses and different different committees in order to weed out those things instead of just fixing our roads. And that's part of the problem. People come up there with their pet projects, and one group wants to raise this tax and one group wants to get a kickback here. And instead of just saying, people have to drive on these roads every day. People are blowing out tires. Their alignment's messed up. They're hitting potholes. I missed a day of my mission trip to Haiti because I hit a pothole, blew out a tire, and missed my flight. So, I mean, that's just the nature of where we are. And everyday people are sick of driving on the roads. So what we need is our lawmakers to put aside every political ambition and every pet project and just say, let's fix our roads. We had $1.5 billion surplus designated just for infrastructure. And nobody was touching that because they were trying to raise the taxes on the gas. So we just need to. Have they done enough? It was your question. Not enough, but I'm proud of the steps they took. It's a step in the right direction, and we just want to continue that when we pick back up in January.
Let's go to another hot button issue: gun control, Second Amendment. I am a proud member of the NRA. I really am, and reading the material that they send me and the votes. Matter of fact, 2 years ago, the NRA gave Mike Anthony some high marks on his position. They did not give your opponent high marks only because you didn't have a track record there. People nationally, this is something of a hot button issue. There are others, but oh, okay. They're telling me we have a telephone call. We'll get back to that in just a minute. Let's see if I can figure out how to operate this again. We got one set of headphones there. Could use two. Let's see what the question is first. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing today, Mike?
I am well. I hope you are.
All right. I'm doing good. I woke up this morning.
There you go.
This is Gator.
Yeah, Gator.
And I've asked Tommy this before, and I'm going to throw it out there again. State of South Carolina has no, tax benefits for families with special needs, but yet you go to college for 4 years and you get all kind of tax benefits. There are none out there for people with special needs to have extraordinary expenses. And I was wondering if they would be looking to possibly get some benefits or something for the ones that have exorbitant expenses.
Okay. I'm going to let them both respond to that and let you listen on the radio.
That'll work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I guess that's a pretty good question. I'm going to throw. Who wants to go first on that?
I couldn't hear.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I couldn't.
He couldn't hear.
Yeah.
His question was about tax. Yeah, his question was about tax breaks or some kind of tax reimbursement for people with severely handicapped children, as he has a son who's severely autistic. He referenced people that go to college who. I guess part of their student loan expense and stuff, getting a tax refund on some of that stuff. And Gator, that is a good question, and I love your son Kyle. Go Gators, by the way. That is he's not a Gator fan; it's just his nickname. But that is a very difficult thing, and we know a lot of the expense that goes into what you guys have to go through. We've talked a lot about being pro-life here, and being pro-life doesn't just mean. We find out that maybe someone said you should have an abortion because your child is going to be special needs, and we say no, keep the child. But then if we don't do anything to help people actually keep the child, then being pro-life is just empty rhetoric. And so, no, I've told you before, we want to look into doing anything we can to help out people that we can. Obviously there's no way we can help every person with every need, but the situation you have where you have a child who's never going to be independent, and I certainly would support looking for anything that we could do to help.
Mark?
Well, there's certain members of society that we do need to help. Money is always the foundation of what can happen or what can't happen. And I would reference like Department of Special Needs. That's a department that needs to be funded. Just like Tommy mentioned, his son may never be totally independent, and those folks need to be taken care of. They need to be helped in any way possible. Now, the specifics of it, I have no idea. I have no idea. That's something that when you get in there, that's when you can figure out what can be done, whether it's through tax breaks, whether it's through grants, whether it's through vouchers, whatever. But we do need to take care of those that can't take care of themselves. I mean, that's why we have a military for those to defend those that can't defend themselves against opposing nations. And so we apply that to society, and yes, we should help. There should be some help. Specifically, what that can be, I don't know.
Okay. Let me jump back to the question I was going to a moment ago on gun control. I think there was some legislation during the year that would have established open carry in South Carolina. That did not pass. Open carry meaning, now, I've got the concealed weapons permit. I don't know why I really carry the thing, but I've got it. And open carry means that you wouldn't have to have the concealed weapons permit. You just strap it on your side and take off. Now, there's still going to be certain limitations with that should it come about. I mean, they're coming back to the convicted felons and those kind of things wouldn't be eligible for it. Tommy, you have a thought on that?
I do. I've supported open carry, and I have my own concealed carry permit as well. Again, maybe I shouldn't, but I do, and I'm proud to carry my Ruger 380, and not on the campaign trail. That's illegal, but I do have one, and leave it at home when I'm officially campaigning.
Well, you can. I mean,
but I don't want to strong arm anybody into a vote, but no, I supported open carry, and the other thing that I support on that too, that came up this past year that Philip Lowe introduced out of Florence, was a measure to allow people that are employed by a school, whether it be a teacher, someone in the faculty, somebody on campus, to be able to carry as well. And there was I like the way he did it. He tried it last term, and it failed, but he tried it again with I thought a lot of good amendments to it, and it was to not just to allow anybody. Originally he said anybody with a CWP could carry, and he struck that. He said in addition to having the proper training, they would go through additional training in first response and a lot of other things. And so he put a lot of good things into it, and I support that too. I think anything we can do to keep our people safe. Law-abiding citizens are the best defense against law-breaking citizens. Do you want me to stop? Want me to keep going?
Well, it doesn't matter. It's getting late in the show.
Sure.
Do you always work in a hot box?
Not usually.
It's 80 degrees in here, and it's very uncomfortable, and I don't know where the switch is.
I don't know either.
Stick it out, boys. Go ahead.
I'll end with this statement, and I tell people, some people say, you carry a gun. I always say, look, I'm not out looking for a fight, but I won't go down without a fight if I see a chance to protect innocent life from people who choose to take it. So that's why I think the more responsible, law-abiding citizens that are armed, the better and the safer we are as a nation. We see it all over the world where terrorist attacks go down freely, where we've disarmed citizens. We also see crime rates higher where we've disarmed citizens. But in places where we can fight back, we see those attacks are fewer, and there's far less casualties when they happen.
Interesting, the murder rate in Chicago is so high, and you can't have a gun there.
Yeah.
Or New York.
D.C., New York, yeah, the three highest.
What do you think, Mark?
Well, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed upon. That's pretty clear. That's pretty clear. I have always said that a armed society is a polite society, and that's what we need to work from. It is your right to protect yourself, to protect your family, and if that right is taken away from you, then whoever can impose their will upon you, and that includes our government. Our government. In those, just like Tommy mentioned, around the world, whenever you see an oppressive, overbearing government, one of the first things that happened to that nation is they disarmed them. They disarmed them. If you cannot stand up for your rights, if you cannot protect yourself, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? It is so important, because without the Second Amendment, the rest of the amendments don't matter. They really don't matter. And so you must have the right to protection. I will reference back to World War II, and Japan attacked us Pearl Harbor, of course, which got us into the war. I think that's been forgotten here in the past few weeks with our president going to Japan and doing everything except a open face apology. I think people have forgotten that Japan attacked us. Now, with that being said, the reason Japan did not do a land invasion of this continent, of this nation, the United States, is because they knew there was a gun behind every door, and they knew what that would entail. We must be able to arm ourselves. We must be able to defend ourselves. Period. That is so basic. Like Tommy said, it's your choice. If you don't want to carry, that's fine. If you do want to carry, that's also fine. That should be your choice. The thing, the hot issue about gun control is the ones that are against guns want to impose their will upon those that support it, and that's not right. That's not what this nation is founded upon, and so that is a right that will not be infringed upon. Whenever that's gone, everything else, it is a slippery slope.
Interesting to me that, and along that same line, and really to support both of you on your philosophies there, when the British invaded America and came to America, their sole intent was to take the guns from the people.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad they didn't.
Yep.
They knew they could not impose their will if we had a way to defend ourselves.
Yeah. Well, we wouldn't be having this conversation probably.
Absolutely.
Not without an accent, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, hot button. And I have to watch the clock now. Should two people of the same sex be allowed to get married?
Who's going first?
We need. I don't remember where
I took the
am.
gun question first, so it should be Mark, but I'd take it first.
That's entirely up to you.
That's fine. I'll take it. That's no problem.
Okay, go ahead.
No. Marriage is between one man and one woman. In the society that we live in, we're trying to redefine everything. And there's certain definitions that cannot be changed. Marriage is between one man and one woman. That is biblical, and that is how God designed us. Like I said, being raised on a farm, certain things become very clear to you. And if I buy two bulls, I will go broke in the cow business trying to raise cows. That's just basic biology. Now we can get into a lot of different issues here, and of course, the big one here lately is this bathroom issue, and it is amazing to me that we spend so much time talking about this when it is so clear. This bathroom issue is just it's an atrocity that things are being forced upon us that do not line up with normal thinking human beings or the Word of God. It is a travesty, and those things need to be addressed. You need to have someone that's able to stand up, like we mentioned earlier, stand up for what's right regardless of the consequences. And this is another one of those issues, and it's not popular. Listening to just the general media and talk around the nation, you would think that the majority of the nation believes that way, that two men and two women should be able to marry, but it's really not that way. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, and they just seem to be making the most noise. So, no, that should not be allowed.
Tommy.
Yeah, to me, it's not really even a hot button issue because I say it unapologetically. To answer your question in a word, should two people of the same gender be allowed to marry? No. You mentioned having two bulls on the farm. Last Sunday night, I preached on Noah's Ark. God said one male, one female of every animal. It's just common sense. That's why I told the congregation that a 6-year-old can understand why a male and a female. That's what procreation is about. People always say things like, well, Jesus never mentioned gay marriage. He absolutely did. Jesus said these words in Matthew 19, "Do you not know that he who made them from the beginning made them male and female? For this cause a man shall leave his father and mother and cling to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh." In those two verses, Jesus said father and mother, man and wife, male and female. So in two verses, he summed it all up there perfectly. God did it from the beginning. He made marriage, he defined marriage, and marriage should be kept his way. I'm not heartless. I believe that it's wrong for two people of the same gender to be together, but I would never try to pass legislation that says it's illegal for a man to love another man or a woman to love another woman. I'm not trying to say they can't love each other, hold hands, live together. I don't personally think they should, but I wouldn't try to stop that. But to redefine marriage, which for 6,000 years has been made by God, defined by God, and upheld by God's church, to somehow come in and say, well, we're going to redefine that. It doesn't work that way. People can't redefine what the inventor had in mind for it. He made it, he blessed it, and he made it male and female from the beginning.
You know, God could have let mosquitoes off of that boat.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Snakes, too.
Snakes, yeah, that would go too. We are almost out of time, and I want to, we are really out of time. I'm going to give you I'm going to be able to allow you about 30 seconds each to give a closing statement. I started with Mark. Let's go with Tommy.
Sure. Again, my name's Tommy Mann. Just to recap, I mean, I'm a very conservative person. I'm a person of principle and conviction. I know a lot of people out there are tired of voting for a politician. I promise I'm not a politician. I'll never be one. If you're sick of voting for a career politician, then try voting for a pastor, somebody who's just going to do what he knows is right at the end of the day. You might not always agree with everything I stand for, but know that I'm not going to look at opinion polls to make my decisions, but to go with my gut and do what I believe is right. I support congressional term limits. I support, I guess we go on and on, but I have a few more seconds. So go to my website at www.voteforman.com. Read a lot of my policies there. You can send me a contact form there with any questions, concerns, things you stand for. I have surveys you can fill out, and let me know more about what you want me to talk about, and I'd be happy to get back with you on all those things. So my name's Tommy Mann. If this sounds good to you, I'd love your support next Tuesday.
Mark?
All right. Again, I'm Mark Cathcart, a Christian conservative who still believes in the Bible, believes in the Constitution. My slogan is Christian values applied to political decisions. I don't think you should be able to, or should be forced to leave your Christianity on the State House steps before you go in. Neither one of us are politicians. When it's time for a change, you need to do things differently. You have a definite choice this year of the same thing or something different. And if you believe in what I've said and the things that I believe in, I'd appreciate your vote. You can also check out much more about me and what I stand for on my website, www.markcathcartforhouse.com, and that should answer most of anyone's questions. Thank WBCU and thank you, Mike, for giving us this opportunity.
Our pleasure. Tomorrow morning, we're looking to have the county council candidates from District 2. That's John Glenn, James Rice, and Ralph Tucker. We'll look forward to that. This has been a presentation of WBCU News, and we'll continue these types of programs. Grammatically, I'm not sure on that, but you get the idea, throughout the week. This is WBCU Union.